What's good, everybody? It's your boy Haki. Another video, bro. I think this is fourth video today. I'm telling you, I'm about to pump out probably like 5 or 6 of these motherfuckers today. I ain't gonna lie. I'm on one. No Drake. Um, but yeah, nah. Today we're gonna be doing that. But today, oh my god, I grab. Hey, if y'all are, you know what I'm saying, puffing on some blunt with me, grab it. I'm not trying to show the camera because I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. But today we're gonna be reacting to how one Alabama man took on a cartel by himself and won. This is crazy. Let's get into it. I saw this a while ago while I was waiting for my computer to get fixed, or like for me to get a new computer, I guess I should say. Um, and yeah, I just stumbled across this, so we gonna get straight into it.
It started with a call from Mexico and a ride nobody wanted to take. An Alabama boss, caught between cartel threats and secrets back home, stood at a crossroads with his life on the line. Nobody on the block saw what was coming next or who would turn on who. Some moves save you, some moves end it all. But who really came out on top? When most folks picture Alabama, they see slow days, tight
I
neighborhoods,
didn't know there
and the
was like
kind of
fake beaches in
hospitality that
Alabama.
makes
I used to
outsiders
live in
drop their
Alabama a
guard.
long time
But
ago, which is
behind the
crazy.
Sunday cookouts and church hats, there's a whole other world moving in silence. A world where
I
everybody
was young
knows
as
who's
hell
got
though.
weight and everybody's trying to stack their paper without making too much noise.
You
In
know
the
what I'm saying?
mid
That's
80s
every
and
real
even
city
more by
for
the
real, for
early
real.
2000s, Alabama's highways became one of the busiest pipelines for the drug game, with Atlanta just 2 hours away serving as the main plug for anything you could name.
Yeah.
Cocaine, heroin, meth. By the time the cartels really planted their flag, even the smallest towns had crews moving work for Mexican connects. Birmingham wasn't some sleepy city. By 2010, violence was up, overdoses climbing, and bodies dropping behind turf beefs. All that, and barely anybody outside noticed. For the people hustling in Bessemer or making moves in Birmingham's west side, the dream was simple: get it, keep it, and don't get caught. Some did
Yeah.
it loud, some did it low key, but either way, the cartel's product was in the mix, and the
Uh,
stakes were nothing light. While most
I
of the
ain't gonna
South
lie,
was
bro.
talking
I might have to motherfucking blur all of this shit. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of sucks. I'm gonna have to blur literally like everything that
college
just popped up
football
on the screen.
or
That's crazy.
barbecue, the folks in the shadows were playing for keeps. That's the
Yeah.
real Alabama underneath the
Damn.
fried chicken and roll tide banners. The
They
Alabama
did
that's
have
about
some
to
good
shape
ass
our
fried
story.
chicken in Alabama. I
Rolando
can't even count.
Antoine Williamson, known on the street as Bald Head, grew up in Bessemer, a blue collar suburb southwest of Birmingham, where people worked hard, looked out for their own, and respected those who knew how to hustle. Bessemer wasn't just factories and football games, it had a reputation, even back then, as a place where folks played by their own rules.
To get
If you
that
wanted to
paper,
make real
man.
money, you had to move smart, and it didn't hurt to know the right people. For a young bald head, the real education didn't come from any classroom. He saw the local hustlers slide through in Cadillacs, rocking gold chains and throwing parties that had the block talking for days. In
Days,
neighborhoods
man.
where steady jobs were few
I
and
think,
options were thin.
and if you grew up ever in like, I hate to say like a hood, but I guess like a hood. Every hood had that one drug dealer that was, that did that, and that you low key looked up to, but you like maybe as a kid you didn't know what the fuck they did for real, but as you got older you kind of understood really what was going on, or you know what I'm saying. I feel like every hood had that though for sure. Like every hood had that one nigga that would always throw them parties. You hear everybody talk to, or that one spot that everybody would kick it at. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? All the drug dealers would be at, and sometimes like the badass kids would go hang out with them and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Hey, if I, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. If you don't, type
It
situation.
was easy to see who had juice and who just talked a good game. By the
Same,
time he hit
same,
his early
same with
20s,
everywhere
Baldhead
again.
already understood the code of the
You can
street.
tell. You can just
Keep your
smell when
mouth
niggas talk.
shut, watch who you trust, and always stay 2 steps ahead. In May 2007, things took a turn. A party in Bessemer went sideways, and a man wound up dead. Rolando caught a murder charge at just 22 years old and ended
Damn.
up sitting in jail for about a month. The case never made it to trial. Maybe self-defense, maybe witness drama, maybe just luck, but on the street, it sent a different message. Baldhead was no rookie, and now his name carried a little more weight. He walked free, but whatever innocence was left burned off that summer.
Oh yeah.
After the case dropped, Rolando went right back to what he knew. He wasn't trying to play it safe or go straight. Instead, he learned that in Bessemer, reputation was everything. Every move mattered, every word got around, and every handshake could set you up or take you out. He started putting his crew together, learning the business on the corners, and listening to the old heads who'd seen it all before. What nobody knew yet was how far he'd go, or how close the cartel already was to the Alabama scene. Back in the early 2000s, the drug game in Birmingham wasn't run by small-timers or weekend hustlers. It was ruled by a handful of heavy hitters. And at the top of the food chain stood Billy Champ Williams Jr., a man whose legend stretched way beyond city limits. Williams wasn't just a street dealer, he was a high-rolling kingpin with a taste for luxury, known for running Birmingham's west side with an iron grip. If you were moving weight in the city back then, you either worked for Champ or you kept your head down and hoped to stay out of his way, because everybody knew Champ didn't play about his business. He built his network with an old school style that mixed fear, loyalty, and a show-off streak. People still talk about the day a SWAT team and the FBI caught him in his luxury downtown condo in nothing but his underwear, stacks of cash flying out the bathroom window as he tried to dump the evidence. That went down in May 2013, right in the heart of Birmingham. And by the time the agents finished sweeping the scene, they grabbed over $166,000 in cash, $177,000 in jewelry, and keys to high-end rides like a Corvette ZR1, plus a few more luxury whips. For years, Champ was untouchable, the kind of guy who could lock down a whole city block and still have time to intimidate witnesses from inside a courtroom. In July 2014, Williams pled guilty to serious federal drug and money laundering charges, catching nearly 22 years in prison. But even behind bars, he still had the streets on edge. When he was led into a court hearing, just a cold stare was enough to make 3 co-defendants fold and plead out without a single word. That's how deep his influence ran. When the feds finally took Champ out of the picture, the whole city felt the aftershocks. Birmingham's drug market was suddenly wide open, and with no clear heir in sight, the hustlers who'd been waiting on the sidelines started making their moves. The authorities first thought one of Champ's relatives would step up and keep the show running, but that didn't last. The family member tried to push heroin to an undercover and got picked up almost immediately. All of a sudden, the West Side Network, the kind of operation that had once been airtight, was left with nobody steering the ship. In the streets, that's the type of power vacuum that either gets filled by somebody bold or gets torn up by chaos. For a while, everybody kept their head down, waiting to see who would step up and grab the crown. While most people in Birmingham were either hustling to stay afloat or laying low to dodge the heat, Rolando saw the open lane and didn't hesitate. He'd been grinding in the background for a minute, moving smaller weight, keeping a low profile, but he understood something the others didn't. Connections matter more than muscle. Before the takedown, Baldhead was one of Champ Williams' many customers. His number even showed up in Champ's seized phone logs. But Baldhead wasn't content just to be another middleman. Once Champ got snatched up and the would-be successors got jammed, Baldhead started building his own brand, tapping into direct plugs, both out of state and across the border. By around 2013, Williamson made the kind of moves that changed the game, cutting out middlemen and working straight with Mexican suppliers, especially a connect named Mean in Monterrey, Mexico, who was tied to the Gulf Cartel. With Mean backing his supply, Baldhead started bringing in major shipments of cocaine, heroin, meth, and marijuana, sending his own people out on the highways to collect loads, stash product in houses scattered all over Birmingham and Bessemer, and keep the work moving from Atlanta to the smallest Alabama town. More important than the money or the muscle was the way Baldhead put his team together. He built a tight crew that ran like a business, stashed house managers, trusted drivers, and even a respected youth football coach who, by day, told kids to stay off the block, but by night was running kilos for the operation. Baldhead kept a small circle, but made sure everybody played their part. He never relied just on street soldiers. He made room for people who could blend in and move smart, which helped the operation stay under the radar for years. There were always guns in the mix and rules about loyalty.
Yeah.
Betrayal meant everything stopped, and people who got sloppy didn't last long. As Baldhead's crew locked down the city, his
Of course, bro.
operation
When you moving
became
that
one of
much
the most
weight, if you make
well-oiled
one
in
mistake,
Alabama,
bro, someone's
blending street
immediately
instincts
on
with
your
business
ass.
smarts.
I mean,
He
like, they're
didn't just
probably
rely
already
on the
on your
same
ass,
old
but you make one
tactics.
mistake,
He
they're
was
really on
constantly
your case,
adapting,
bro.
using stash houses spread out in Birmingham, Bessemer, and the surrounding areas, so law enforcement never knew where the real action was going down. Every role mattered. One guy would pick up shipments straight out of Atlanta, another would move the work across county lines. And at every step, Baldhead made sure the product kept moving and the cash kept flowing back up the chain. If you were anywhere near the game in West Birmingham by 2015, you felt the ripple effects. Overdoses on heroin and fentanyl started climbing. Turf beefs turned deadlier, and the streets were talking about how Baldhead's crew was always one step ahead. But this wasn't just some corner hustle, it was a real business. Baldhead understood loyalty and paranoia both mattered. He kept
Yeah.
a small circle, made people earn trust, and wasn't shy about cutting folks off if they started acting suspect. Everybody knew that
Gotta
if you
play it
started talking
smart.
too much, making wild moves, or letting outsiders into your business, you wouldn't last. To keep the feds off his back, Baldhead brought in community figures who didn't fit the usual profile, like that youth football coach who ran the field by day and the highway at night, using
Yeah.
their clean image as cover, which made the whole operation harder to pin down.
Smart.
Guns were always close, but more as insurance than show and tell. And Baldhead made sure the real heat stayed tucked away unless it was absolutely necessary. He wasn't flashy on the block, but he still liked the finer things. Over time, he built up a collection of luxury rides, Cadillac Escalades, a Ford F-250 King Ranch, and that
Ooh.
Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat that always got folks talking. Every
Of
so
course.
often, you'd catch him on Snapchat or Instagram with a pile of $100 bills, a gold and diamond raw pendant swinging around his neck, and a smile that said he was winning bigger than anybody else in Birmingham. But even that was calculated, enough flexing to keep his crew motivated, never enough to have the police at his door without warning. From 2013 up through the late 2010s, Baldhead's empire only grew. His people weren't just moving cocaine and weed anymore. By 2018, heroin, meth, and especially fentanyl were flooding the streets. Agents later said his operation
That
alone
early?
supplied most of the West Side
So it's
with
been a
hard
problem
drugs,
for a
fueling
minute
some of the
then.
worst waves of violence and addiction the area had seen in years.
Yeah,
At the
bro. When
same
you get
time,
that addicted to
Baldhead's
drugs,
crew started pulling in so
or
much cash
when
that
you
the
get that addicted to substances, man,
cartel took real
it's
notice.
evil, bro.
Mexican suppliers didn't just see him as another runner, but as a boss in his own right. That level of success, though, came with more heat from both the streets and out-of-town connects. For a while, the plan worked. The money flowed in, the crew kept expanding, and Baldhead became the power on the West Side. His influence grew so strong that by the late 2010s, even law
Nice little
enforcement was
guitar in the
starting to
background.
realize just how deep his roots went in the Birmingham drug game. But underneath all that shine, pressure was building. The more he moved, the more he attracted the attention of both the feds and the Mexican suppliers watching their cut. And as Baldhead's name kept growing, so did the risks. He
Yeah.
wasn't looking for trouble, but in
More
the
money,
drug
more
game,
problems,
trouble
bro. That's a
always
real
finds
thing,
you
yo.
first. And when the cartel wants to know if you're loyal, there's no safe way to play it. By the time 2018 rolled around, Baldhead was no
Damn, he
longer
was
just buying
moving.
product. He was in business with some of the most powerful players out of Mexico. His main connect,
Wow.
known as Mean from Monterrey, wasn't
Mem-
just some runner or low-level contact. Mean was linked directly to the Gulf Cartel, a crew that had a rep for not playing games when it came to their money or their people.
Yeah.
Baldhead had been moving so much product and pushing so much cash their way that the dynamic started to shift. Instead of treating him like just another distributor, the cartel began to look at him almost like a peer, someone who could actually be invited to the table, not just sent orders from the top. That's how the
Wow.
infamous invitation went down in the summer of 2019.
What the
Meme
fuck?
reached out and told Baldhead to come to Monterey, pull up for a motorcycle trip, kick it with the crew, and celebrate the partnership, a move that was supposed to be a sign of trust, but anybody who knows the cartel knows nothing is ever just a party.
Party.
Some of
Yeah.
Baldhead's closest people warned him straight up, they can do anything to you down there. Bro, you show up, you might not make it back.
On guard,
That
bro.
wasn't just paranoia
You
talking.
going to Mexico to the cartel. I'm not trusting the cartel, bro. Anything could happen. You could look at them wrong, bro. Look at that woman wrong, or do anything, and it's over for you, bro. Or you could be like, you don't accept their deal or something like that, or you don't like your cut and you talk back. It's over. It's over. He's done. He's out of there, bro.
One of his own couriers, a dude from Reynosa, had been kidnapped by cartel gunmen and ransomed for $20,000 not long before, forcing his pops to sell the family home to bring him back. Even his cousin had lost a shipment in Atlanta and nearly got his whole family hunted down in Mexico. The message was loud and clear. Once you get on the cartel's radar as a big fish, you're either in deeper than you think or you're about to get squeezed for every dollar you ever made.
Yeah.
Baldhead played it smart. He told Meme he was busy, didn't make the trip, and by all accounts, that move probably saved his life. Behind the scenes, later intel confirmed the whole trip was a setup. They'd planned to kidnap Baldhead and hold him for a $100,000 ransom if he'd actually crossed the border.
Of course,
For a minute, it looked like Baldhead had outplayed the cartel at their own game, staying alive while other bosses with less sense had vanished without a trace. Even after dodging that bullet, Baldhead kept the business running. The Mexicans didn't cut him off because he was still bringing in money, but the whole vibe shifted. While Baldhead thought he dodged the most dangerous bullet, he didn't see the next one coming because it wasn't fired from across the border, but from his own backyard.
What?
By late 2019, the feds had been putting together a serious task force, pulling in Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the FBI's North Alabama Safe Streets crew, and whoever else had jurisdiction in Birmingham's Wild West. The investigation wasn't built on just hearsay. They had wiretaps, surveillance, undercover buys, and most importantly, people on the inside. That's where the real drama went down, because while Baldhead was stressing cartel traps, one of his own trusted couriers, the same guy who'd warned him about Monterey, flipped and started working with the feds. Nobody in the streets ever expects it to be their own people, but that's how.
Again, another reason to not be in the streets. Bro snitched on his mans. Be realistic, yo. If you get thrown 22 years in prison right now, but the feds is like, all right, look, if you help us, we'll make it 5. But you got to give us your boss. But we'll make it 5 years and we'll give you federal protection. But, buddy, you got to give us your boss. You're probably going to do it, bro. You want to see your family. You want to get some more, you know what I'm saying? You're not trying to be up in, you know what I'm saying, prison with the booty warriors. You're not like that for real. You was just a guy trying to make some money, and now you in this situation. You know what I'm saying? You gonna snitch. Most people are gonna snitch.
Most kingpin.
No, not a lot of people are really gangster, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Fall. The
You know
courier
what I'm saying?
agreed
I'm not
to
saying
wear a
I'm hard
wire,
either,
meeting
nigga.
with
I'm
Baldhead
folding. That's why I'm not in the
face-to-face
streets, though.
and
You know
letting
what
the
I'm saying?
conversation roll.
I
What
get this
Baldhead
internet
didn't
money.
know was that
Or
every word was
starting
getting
to, at
handed
least, you know what I'm
straight to
saying?
federal agents, including talk about his cousin who'd been plotting the beef in the crew and business with Mimi out in Mexico. On June 11th, 2019.
Look, bro, yo, his cousin, gang. His cousin snitching on him. Like, like, people are gonna fold, bro. The family don't matter, none of that matters, bro. People will fold, bro. They throw them years at you, bro, and you not ready to do them that time for somebody, you gonna probably fold, bro.
That wire recording caught Baldhead breaking down his entire operation for the courier, admitting who was really in charge, how the product moved, and why he didn't trust his cousin enough to let him handle anything major. That same meeting included talk about selling to high-rolling clients on the US 280 corridor, proof that the business wasn't just about the block, but about moving weight to the burbs where folks had money to spend and didn't want trouble on their doorstep. While the
Yeah.
recording was stacking up evidence, law enforcement kept gathering intel from every angle: cell phone pings, WhatsApp messages about deals, financial trails, and more. The feds started connecting dots across at least 18 different
Oh
conspirators.
Lord.
But the only thing that truly cracked the case was the inside job. The more bald heads Courier handed over, the more clear it became that this wasn't some street beef about respect. It was a federal case, and it was closing in fast. The paranoia Baldhead had for years was justified, just not in the way he expected. It wasn't me or the Gulf Cartel that would take him out. It was the same people he thought would never turn, quietly taking meetings and feeding every move to the other side. And that's where the real downfall began. Not with a bang, but with a conversation in a car, a wire hidden in plain sight, and a kingpin who never saw the betrayal coming. By August 2019, Baldhead had become the one name on everybody's radar, from folks hustling in Birmingham to the agencies watching from the other side of the street. When the Safe Streets Task Force decided it was time to make their move, they didn't leave anything to chance. After 3 years of building a case, connecting dots from Bessemer to Monterey and back, they brought every tool they had: surveillance, informants, wiretaps, undercover buys,
the whole
and
9
stacks of
yards for
evidence
this guy,
nobody in
bro.
the city had
He must have
seen
been making
before.
some
On
ridiculous
the morning
amount
of
of money.
August 22nd, the team rolled out with a tight plan. No
I mean,
leaks,
had to
no
have been.
warning,
Look
and
at all that
definitely
stuff.
no room for Baldhead
That's not
to
even
slip
all of it.
away.
And he had like
The
all the
feds
cars, yeah.
caught him slipping in the parking lot of a Publix grocery store in Homewood, a spot he probably figured was low-key enough to blend in, but upscale enough to not draw eyes.
Yeah.
Agents moved in quick, boxed him in, and pulled him from behind the wheel of his 2016
SRT.
Dodge Charger Hellcat. He tried to reach for something, but before he could make a move, they had him on the pavement, hands behind his back, 2 loaded handguns, extra magazines, and almost $14,000 in a bag. While Baldhead was still getting cuffed, other teams were already hitting his stash spots across the city. 3 houses went down that morning. Inside, they found what you'd expect from a major player: over 366 grams of heroin and fentanyl, 109 grams of cocaine, more than half a kilo of meth, stacks of cash totaling over $97,000.
I'm about to have
enough
to
weed
blurt.
to keep half the West Side happy for months.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, gang. I have to do so much editing for this video, but this is a good story.
Feds
Bro. I'm not gonna lie.
also picked up an arsenal of guns
Yeah.
and more than 1,700 rounds of ammo,
Woo!
showing this wasn't just about getting money. It was about keeping everybody ready for whatever came their way.
Yeah, they're ready
That
for
bust
war, bro.
didn't just cripple Baldhead's operation. It sent a ripple through every hustler in the city. The days of thinking nobody could touch the top spot were over. As the news spread, most of Baldhead's circle tried to stay out the way, but the task force had already mapped out the crew. In the weeks that followed, 14 other co-conspirators were picked up in coordinated raids, and by November, a sweeping 58-count indictment was handed down, charging 18 people in total with everything from conspiracy to distribute heroin, cocaine, meth, and weed, to money laundering and firearm offenses. Every role in Baldhead's empire, from stash
those are some
house
very
managers
serious charges,
to
by
drivers
the way.
to
I
low-level
hope y'all know
street
that.
pushers,
That's
was
not.
wrapped up in the indictment. Some of his people didn't wait for trial. They took pleas and tried to cut their losses early, but Baldhead stayed solid, refusing to plead, betting on his reputation and the slim chance he could beat the case in court. At the top of the paperwork sat Rolando Antoine Williamson, aka Baldhead, now officially facing the Kingpin statute, a federal charge reserved for major players whose operations move like international cartels. The continuing criminal enterprise charge meant life with no parole if convicted, and the prosecutors made it clear that this time there was no way to finesse the outcome. Law
Yeah.
enforcement wasn't shy about the impact either. U.S. Attorney Prem Escalona said the takedown of Baldhead's crew was the kind of blow that will spend the rest of his life in prison, and FBI agents called it a decisive blow to the trafficking networks that had flooded Birmingham with dope for years. Every press conference, every news headline, and every street rumor hammered the same point. The run was over, and there was a new level of fear in the game now. Nobody
Yeah.
was untouchable anymore. As the dust settled and Baldhead's
Them
mugshots
people will
started
come
making the
get your
rounds,
ass, man. Them three
folks on the
letter people
block
not
couldn't
playing
help but
with you.
think about how fast the tables turned. Just months before, Baldhead had dodged a cartel setup and kept his operation running smooth, outsmarting players who'd buried plenty before him. But in the end, it wasn't the cartel that did him in. It was the people closest to him, the feds, watching patiently, and the very city he thought he'd figured out. When April 2022 came around,
He
Baldhead's
got indicted
day in
or
court
indicted.
finally arrived.
How you say
And the
it?
trial that unfolded in Birmingham's federal courthouse wasn't just
Oof.
another headline. It was the closing chapter for one of the city's biggest drug empires. The prosecution brought a mountain of evidence to the table, built from years of surveillance, informant work, and every slip-up Baldhead's crew made along the way. There were cell phone and WhatsApp messages lining up drug deals, photos and videos of
Damn.
Baldhead posing with stacks of cash and custom bling, and most
Oh.
damning, the secret audio recording from June 2019 where Baldhead broke down his whole operation in his own
Yeah, that was
words.
probably the best.
The jury heard it all. Talk about cutting off his cousin, beef over the product, conversations about selling to high-end clients on US 280, and confirmation that his main connect was Meme from Monterey. Every story, every flex, every joke from those taped meetings became evidence, turning street stories into a federal case. In court, prosecutors painted Baldhead as not just a drug dealer, but as the kingpin responsible for putting hundreds of kilos of cocaine, more than 24 kilos of heroin, 10 kilos of meth, and over 20,000 pounds of marijuana on the streets between 2013 and 2019. They even brought up how the fentanyl found in his stash alone, just 150 grams, could have killed thousands, with one officer telling the jury lives were literally on the line with every batch he moved. Former FBI agent Wayne Gerhardt, who led the case, called it one of the top investigations of his 23-year career, laying out how Baldhead's crew supplied the West Side with enough poison to keep law enforcement scrambling for years.
Yeah.
The prosecution also made a point
I mean,
of
if
showing
we're
the
being
$36
honest,
million
bro, because it's like a lot of the stuff that he pushed out, yeah, a lot of it's being used. But I mean, if we're being honest, bro, a large portion of that is just like continuously just being sold from plug to 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 plug. Like it just keeps going in different places, different cities, different states, you know. It's crazy.
in drug proceeds. They tracked back to Baldhead's empire, adding a money judgment to the case and seizing assets, 2 luxury vehicles, over
Damn.
$100,000 in cash, more than
Damn.
$45,000 in jewelry, and every gun and bullet they found on his turf. Baldhead's defense tried to show another side of the man behind the nickname. Family and friends sent in letters describing him as a loyal father, a generous friend, and a community member who'd used his money to help out people in need. Some painted a picture of a guy who, despite being deep in the game, never forgot where he came from and did his best to look out for his people. But Judge
In the end, bro, he was guilty. I'm not gonna lie.
Anne Marie C. Axon wasn't buying it. She made it clear that no amount of charity could wipe away the damage done by the drugs he sold. In her words, "My concern is that you have left these young men and women with the impression that it's okay to sell drugs so long as you're generous with your proceeds." She reminded everyone in the courtroom that the same money that bought cars and jewelry also paid for pain, overdoses, and funerals all across Birmingham. The verdict was heavy. On April 18, 2022, the jury found Baldhead guilty on every count, leading a criminal enterprise, multiple counts of trafficking, weapons charges, conspiracy, and using phones in furtherance of the business. Judge Axon sentenced him to life in federal prison, tacking on another 10
Life in
years and
federal
entering a
prison.
$36 million judgment against him. The whole crew fell in line after. Some got 14 years, some 25, others 40,
Oof.
depending on their role. But for Baldhead, it was a wrap. The man who once ran the block, dodged the cartel, and beat the odds on more than one occasion was now locked up for life, his empire seized, his crew scattered, and his legend sealed.
That was a good video. I ain't gonna lie. I love watching this stuff, bro, because it just shows you, bro. This shit is just the streets is just not it, bro. Go get you a trade. Go hit you a course. Go get certified. Go do something. Shit. Start a business. Start trading. Nigga, do something else. Do YouTube. I like that was good. Um, but yeah, it's your boy Hockey, and I'm out, bro.